Hello, lovely people. Thank you for tuning in. I am in beautiful Portugal. This is where I'm living at the moment, in this gorgeous space, surrounded by olive trees, which are very close to my heart, and spending a lot of time barefoot and grounding and working on myself, my own healing journey. I am quite committed to sharing my own healing journey with others, as I feel it is an integral part of my path and my service here to the world, to show up and share my own journey, which has been fairly bumpy along the way so far. And the benefit of that is that it has led me to a self-healing path, to greater self-awareness, and to the desire to be of service in the world, as we are all on this journey really of healing and awakening. And so it's with that intention that I am sitting here today to share part of my journey. So what I want to talk today about is trauma, and in particular the vagus nerve. Not really from a very scientific perspective, but more from the perspective of how trauma and having an inflamed vagus nerve has affected my life in the past 2 years. And so if you don't know much about me, I'll give you just a quick background into the recent traumas that I have been through, so that you understand what's been going on in my physical body primarily. There's many layers to healing and to my own journey, but just to start with the physical. In 2019, I was in 2 motorcycle accidents 2 months apart to the day. And the first time I fell off to my right side and landed on my right shoulder here. I don't know if you can see, there's a nice big scar here where the surgeons in India put a metal plate and pins into my arm. So that was I actually had a what do they call it, not a general, not a local, something in between, a regional anesthetic. So I was semi-conscious but sedated, and they did the surgery in Goa in India. So that was 2 big traumas, the accident itself and then the surgery. I'm not going to go into details today, but this right side of my body had been through 2 major traumas from that. And then 2 months later, riding on the back of somebody else's motorcycle, I was in another accident. A car whipped in front of us. Again, fell to my right-hand side, fell on my arm, broke my wrist, went back to the same hospital, and they put 2 metal rods into my wrist, which then were removed about 2 months later in England. I went back to England after that. So again, another accident, another surgery. So this poor arm went through a lot in the space of 2 months. I went down the mechanisms that kicked in for me were denial. These are coping mechanisms that we have. Denial, self-medication. I mean, I took the medication that was given to me by the hospital, and I acquired more because I couldn't cope with the intense anxiety and bodily sensations that were arising from the traumas. And then I started to seek medical attention when I got back to the UK in the form of physiotherapy. But what I found immediately was that the physiotherapist did not understand where my nervous system was at. She was looking at where my bones were at and my muscles, and she told me, well, it's fine, I can move your arm this way, there's no real structural damage, we just need to get you moving. And she told me to do things like get on the treadmill and run, and she gave me a bunch of exercises to do, which when I tried to do them at home, sent me into a cold sweat, sent me straight back into a trauma response of intense fear. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do the exercises I just couldn't do it. My body was saying no. But of course, my mind was then telling me I was failing and I wasn't doing what I needed to do to get better. And I must try harder. And I wasn't able to be very loving to myself at that point in my life. This has been a big part of the journey, is self-love. So I'm just going to take a breath, because all of this is still I feel my nervous system react just talking about this. So I'm just going to hold myself here for a moment, ground myself. So what happened was I realised that I did have to stop self-medicating, that I went to the GP, who recommended, the only thing that she was able to recommend to me was CBT, which is not really that helpful for trauma, or pills, anxiety medication. I don't even know the name of it, but I declined that. I came off the Xanax and Valium type stuff that I'd got myself, and I stopped smoking weed, which had been for quite many years a way of coping with anxiety and depression. So I came off nearly all of my coping mechanisms, not all at once. I was still smoking tobacco at that point, and I stopped with the coffee as well, because I was really living on stimulants for quite a long time. I wasn't very grounded, and I was addicted to many stimulants that, now knowing more about the body, were firing up my adrenals, my nervous system, and putting me into kind of a state of high alert, which felt like a kind of buzz, and I quite enjoyed it. But after the accidents, I couldn't enjoy it anymore. It was just a massive trigger. My body didn't want any kind of stimulant, whether it was from the outside world or from something I ingested or from a memory. That was too much. That felt unsafe in my body. So yeah, one of the first steps to healing was that I had to really start to let go of the things that had been keeping me safe for such a long time, my coping mechanisms. And that's really not an easy process if you suffer from addiction, which I did and do. Like I still have that part of me. I don't know if I'll ever get rid of that part of me. I'm learning to love myself more and more so that I can safely let go of some of these coping mechanisms. But it was not easy. Even when I was having panic attacks, and I kind of knew that it was because of the weed and the coffee, the caffeine, I still found it very difficult to let them go. It took me many weeks or months to break those relationships. So yes, I wanted to talk today about the physical symptoms of trauma and what happens when the vagus nerve is triggered, is inflamed, maybe even damaged. So the vagus nerve, again, I'm not a scientist, but I understand enough that it starts in the brain and it comes down like the back of the neck, I think through the jaw, because the jaw is definitely affected. And so the jaw, the back of the neck, down through the throat, through the esophagus, the chest and the esophagus, and down into the gut. And then I would also feel tension down through my groin, and even this line of the body's all connected. So in the massage training that I did with Brandon Raynor's amazing, you should look him up. He calls this the big toe line. So starting with our big toes, going up the inside leg, up all the way through the groin, belly, chest, throat, jaw. So this is where the vagus nerve runs. The vagus nerve apparently just runs down into the gut. So breaking this arm, what it did was the muscles to the side of the arm tensed up to compensate for my arm. So my pec muscles, my chest muscles. And it felt like I had just suddenly got super tight and tense, all where this nerve runs. So my jaw was so tight sometimes I could hardly move it, and it was really painful and felt like I had these massive rocks in here. I mean, I still do actually, but I'm just not as acutely aware of it all the time as I was straight after the events. All down my neck, really tight, to the point that sometimes I couldn't turn my head. And then down here into these points here, into the pec minor muscles, feels like rocks again. That was so tight. It would be painful to touch, painful to move my upper body. And then down again into the esophagus and the upper part of the gut, the diaphragm, also feels like rocks of tension in there, and like elastic bands being stretched. And then down into the gut, I also find and have had points of like intense tension, almost like gritty, knotty tissue, and like this feeling of being stretched, like these bands being so tight that they might just snap, and really feeling how everything was connected. So muscular tension was one of the main symptoms that I found from trauma. And alongside the muscular tension, I would say that there's been like a hardening and a tightening of the connective tissues. So the tissues, like the deeper tissues around the muscles, the fascia, the tissues around the joints, I found that all of this kind of got stuck, compressed and stuck because first of all, my body was in a state of freeze, which is a nervous system response alongside fight or flight, and therefore I was frozen in shock and in pain and in fear, and literally my body wouldn't let me move these muscles and my upper body in the way that it did before the accidents, and it still doesn't. I'm still coming out of this now, almost 2 years later. So the tissues around the muscles also just got stuck, fused, and now as I start to open and move through and move back into some sort of fluidity, it's quite hard to get that back overnight. It's not happening like that. It is like these elastic bands got stretched and stuck like this, and now they've sort of lost their elasticity. And the way I think of it is that energy was not flowing and has not been flowing properly through my being because of the freeze state and because of being trapped in this freeze state. So energy being the waters in our body, the blood, the lymph. So the lymph is really important in removing toxins from the body, and the lymphatic system needs to be stimulated with touch or with movement. So if we become stuck and we're not moving, the body, the immune system, part of which is the lymphatic system, cannot work properly, and the blood's also not circulating as well. The heart's affected. So circulation poor circulation is causing this kind of crunchy tightness. And so now when I'm moving and coming out of this very, 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 very tight state, things just feel really awkward and uncomfortable, like cracking, clicking, crunching sounds and feelings in my connective tissues. That's really, really something to get used to and to hopefully move beyond, because it's not an enjoyable feeling to feel so dehydrated and crunchy in my body. So I'm working through that with lots of movement and self-massage and self-healing, but it's a process. It's definitely a process. So yes, I wanted to talk about how physical trauma is. I had it said to me by a well-meaning friend or two, and also, like I said, some of these medical professionals have said or implied, a friend even did say to me, it's all in your head. And that was really, really difficult to hear, and it's not true. It's not true. This well-meaning friend, she's just not experienced what I'm experiencing. And I think many of the medical profession who also are probably very well-meaning and have not actually experienced this kind of trauma and this kind of damage or challenge the vagus nerve. And to even the words I'm saying now just do not convey how it feels. I don't even think there are words that could convey how it feels. It's so much more than it being tight. It feels like, it has felt like I'm being strangled from the inside, like my organs contracting, my muscles contracting to the point where it feels like I can't breathe, because it's just all so tight through this esophagus, through the lungs, through the diaphragm. So yeah, I feel like words can't really do it justice, but I would like to try and explain how frightening it is to feel trapped in your own body, like your body is turning against you, and it feels like you're dying. It feels like you're dying when your vagus nerve's not working properly, and because it is a fight-flight response. The body feels under a life-threatening situation, but to feel like that daily for a very prolonged period of time is just so difficult. It's just so difficult. And I'm really sharing this because I know that there are so many other people out there going through something really traumatic at the moment and feeling really unhome and unsafe in their bodies. And I want to be able to provide a little bit of solace and comfort in saying that I know this journey. I know what it feels like to feel so unsafe and trapped and afraid of your own body, and to feel also like the outside world, even the most trained professionals out there and your best friends and even your family, look at you like you're crazy, like you're making it up, because on the outside you look fine, pretty much. You can't really see how tight things are, how seized up things feel, how much pressure, how much anxiety. It's not something that can really be seen from the outside, even by the most empathic, helpful healers, but I want to say that I have come so far. And I'm still on this journey of unwinding the tightness and the trauma, which is multidimensional. I'm really just focusing on physical today, but I definitely see things from multiple dimensions, and I will talk more about that another time. But physically, it's a daily practice to unwind this tension. And like, it doesn't just happen overnight. It can tighten up overnight, or in a split second it can tighten up. But to unwind it, it just takes patience and love and faith. And I'm tight today. I had COVID at the beginning of this year, which just set everything off again. The muscle tightness, the fight, flight, freeze response kicking in, the connective tissues tightening up again. On top of that, a feeling of intense burning inflammation all through this area again of the vagus nerve, from throat down to gut. And that happened to me. That started in January, and we're now in August, January, February, March, April, May, June. 8 months later, I'm still unwinding from that, plus another surgery last year, plus all the trauma to here. So I've gone through a lot, and I know it's possible that I am going to keep getting better and better. I am actually stronger now than I think I've ever been because of all the work that I've been doing on myself, and I am actually able to say that I'm grateful to COVID and to these accidents for waking me up, for making me love myself more, for making me move forward with my sole purpose and my visions and my mission and my dreams, for mostly just for making me embody this beautiful body, prioritize my health and myself. But it's really not easy. It wasn't an easy card that I was dealt or that I chose, because I do believe I chose it all. And it would be really a waste, I think, for me to keep it all to myself and not to share my journey, to hopefully inspire other people and to share the tools that have helped me along the way. So I'm now at a place where I'm more grounded. I'm really committed to my practices that help me and my health. And I am at a place where I'm ready to share these with you. So yeah, that's going to be something that you're going to start to see coming through very soon, is ways that you can deal with, find soothing and comfort and also deep healing for yourself, because there's definitely a space for asking for help from the outside world, but so much of this journey is inward, and we actually have to become our own healers. And I feel really inspired to share with you everything that I know that can help you if you are on this journey too. If you're really struggling with your recovery from trauma, and it might not be an accident and a surgery like me, it could be so many different things. Trauma is very broad. The vagus nerve is definitely central to our trauma response, to our fight, flight, freeze response. So you can go off and Google that and look into it yourself if you want more science on it. But yes, if you're experiencing tightness through your jaw, your chest, your belly, or maybe if you feel numbness in these areas and very disconnected, it's a sign that there's some trauma there, and there's really trauma there for all of us, for 95% of us, as a guess. There aren't many people who have got very far on this self-healing path yet, but the ones that are doing it and are sharing, thank you, because you've helped me, and now it's my turn to give back. So I'm going to be sharing more about the symptoms of trauma, more about my own journey, and more tools that can help you with your own healing journey and becoming an empowered and knowledgeable and wise woman or man with your own healing medicine. Because I, for one, have just been very, very let down in many ways by Western medicine. Also, it saved my life and I'm grateful for it, but there's so much room for it to grow, and it's not giving us enough assistance when it comes to trauma. And there are people out there though doing this work, so I'll talk more about them and more about tools that can help you coming soon. Thank you for watching and sending lots of love.